Hello and welcome to FGC Philosophy Podcast. This is where I'm striving to reach the highest level of myself and hoping to help others along that journey. My name is Tavian Napier and I'm the host of this podcast, aka The Philosopher. I am an esports coach, life coach, and commentator, fighting game enthusiast, father, husband, a person who wants to be better every day as much as possible, right? That's the journey that I've been on for a long time now, where once I was about 25, I had a huge mindset shift and I just really strived to do a lot better in my life. To get healthier was my first thing. I was very, very overweight and had high blood pressure and changed my life in that manner. And since then, since the pandemic, a lot has happened. I've had a kid, I've gotten married, we bought a house, a lot of stuff. And my life has changed and gotten so many changes, so many different evolutions of it, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing, the pandemic being one of the most significant in the last couple of years. Before that, I was on a really good trajectory with my content and with my career, working with the University of Western Michigan. I got laid off, got hired back. I've given that story a couple times now explaining that, but that whole journey, I've had a lot of successes in my life and a lot of failures as well. I'm always failing and succeeding in some form or fashion. I'm always failing forward though, right? That's the thing that I try to really focus on. And as such, this podcast is starting to reflect that. I want to try to turn this into the concept I've been thinking about called accountability through content. And more on that in a little bit. So the main topics of this episode are: one, my esports updates with my jobs. Of course, the conversation. I did a post on Twitter and people were really interested about a meeting that I had with someone from Cloud9, the esports organization. If you're not too well known with esports stuff, they're a very well-known team. They have teams in big games like League of Legends. I think they have a team in Halo now. Yeah, they definitely have a team in Halo. They have a team in Rocket League. They have players in several fighting games, stuff like that. And yeah, it's pretty exciting to be able to meet with an organization like that. So of course, some people are curious. I don't personally want to say too much, but I do want to just share the concept of it and talk about it. It is kind of exciting to be rubbing shoulders with some of these organizations. I have in the past, and I'm trying to do more of that, and it feels like it's getting there. One of the other updates is just talking about Street Fighter? Not Street Fighter. Talking about Guilty Gear Strive. I've got about 300 hours in the game now, and I want to just discuss where I'm at with the game and where I want to be in my plans on getting there, and some difficulties and maybe not necessarily frustrations, just roadblocks, and making sure that I'm not plateauing, that kind of concept. I think it's a good check-in for that game. But first, I always do a few life updates. The main thing that I'm trying to do consistently is talking about what I'm listening to in terms of audiobooks, and now kind of like podcasts and stuff like that. I've kind of branched off a little bit. And I'm trying to circle back. I talked about that in the last episode, where I'm trying to get back more into the personal development stuff. Again, revisiting some of that. But I'm trying to finish what I've already started before I do that. That way I don't have to play catch up later on or remember where I left off, that sort of stuff. So I've been listening to the Harry Potter series. Right now I'm on book 4, which is the Goblet of Fire. Let me make sure. Prison of Azkaban is 3. Chamber of Secrets and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone, whichever one you want to call it. I'm listening to the audiobook. I think it's a Philosopher's Stone in the audiobook, which is which is narrated by Jim Dale. Has a British accent, does a pretty good job. Some of the characters are a little bit more annoying because maybe I don't know the way that a lot of British people do their tones stereotypically. I also don't know about like women versus men and how they tend to inflect their voices, that sort of thing. So some of the way he voices characters, like Hermione, for instance, is just really weird to me. But outside of that, it's not too bad. He changes his voice up. It's all right. I'm on chapter 9, which is the Dark Mark. This is, if you've seen the movies where the Quidditch World Cup is happening and the match has just ended and now all the Death Eaters are coming to attack and stuff like that. It's very different from the book. And I remember because this is the movie that the director tried very hard to differentiate himself from the first two directors. 1 and 2 were directed by somebody, and then the third one was directed by somebody else. But those directors did a good job of working together to keep a cohesive storyline. Prisoner of Azkaban was a good movie to get more dark, so the way the movie was shot, the way the movie was directed, and the cinematography was more dark. darker themes, more blues, dark blues, that sort of stuff. But a lot of people either hate or love the movie of The Goblet of Fire. And if you watch the interview, I don't like this director. I don't hate this movie, but I think this director had a very toxic mentality when it came to doing this movie. He really tried to differentiate himself from the other ones, and not in a way that is more artistic. I mean, maybe this was his idea, but the way he voiced his opinion on it just seemed kind of selfish and egotistical to take this pre-existing storyline and this fandom and sort of just go that route. This is the interesting concept of making movies and things, and anyone who is putting himself in a public eye opens himself to criticism. And if I were to be a film critic in this situation, I think that he did a poor job and was kind of selfish with his take on how to do this movie. I still enjoy the movie, so it's not bad, but in terms of his personality, from what I've seen from the interviews and how I'm listening to this book, because I'm only 9 chapters in now. So my opinion of those movies, I'm going to try to keep them, have them in 2 categories, right? One is just enjoy the movie for what it is and not get salty and be a nerd boy. And the other one is to be able to critique it based off of how the books were written, and also based off how the other movies are done, how the other movies are shot, and the quality, or what I think of the quality of those movies and everything. It's just interesting. It's less nerdy, push up my glasses, the movie should have been this and this and this, and yeah. It's more so just criticizing it from a kind of subjective point of view, but not getting so mad because it's not what I dreamed it to be, right? I want to be able to critique movies. One of the things that I've been fascinated by lately is just learning more about cinematography. I don't want to direct a movie ever. Of all the things that I'm interested in, making a movie is not very high on that list, but I do like making YouTube videos, and I think it would be beneficial to know and learn more about cinematography and how traditional movies are made and what makes a good storyline. Again, I don't plan on doing anything like nonfiction or doing any skits and stuff like that, but I do think that what makes a movie good are things that make it compelling. And if I can make my content more compelling to other people while still delivering a productive message, that benefits both parties, because you're entertained more, and I'm hopefully spreading my message, and in the process, hopefully also making some money so I can feed my family, right? I do have I want to help people, but I also want to make a living doing it, right? Because this is more of a hobby. I only make a little bit of money, not enough to do anything but reinvest it back into itself. And as such, I would love to do this more and to do it better, but that takes money, and I shouldn't feel ashamed about that. Moving on though, this book is pretty interesting, pretty fun so far. I've got an hour commute to and from work sometimes, so or for at least one of my jobs, and so I listen to it from time to time when I'm not listening to music or maybe a debate, something like that, some current events. I feel like I should talk about that, but I really don't want to right now. Oh my god, I feel like we're so close to getting to World War III, and I'd rather just not bury my head in the sand, but not use my content to further the discussion I'd rather not use my content to further the discussion right now, until I educate myself better. But in terms of Harry Potter, there's so many things I can discuss on this topic. One of the things that's interesting, and I'll try to touch on these fairly quickly, is the other house elf. I think her name was Twinkie. Right, in the movie, there's only one. There's 2. There's Creature and there's Dobby. Dobby is the really annoying one that keeps self-harming every time he does things wrong. And then Creature is the serious black family's house elf. And the short version is basically these house elves are basically house slaves and basically wear a potato sack for clothes. It's really weird, right? If you don't know Harry Potter, it's kind of hard to explain, but they're basically house slaves, and most of them are conditioned. They have the mentality of this is what they deserve, this is the lifestyle they should have, and freedom is the worst thing in the world. From what I've seen so far, at least from 2 of these, Dobby and now Twinkie, or whatever her name is, Winky. And it's the way this is introduced, the concept is introduced, it almost feels like they're brushing over it because the kids are the main part of the storyline, but also the reason this is brushed over because the kids think this are bad, think this concept is bad, or at least the ones that are human, right? Like more Muggle-born, less magic. Like Ron's more accepting to it, whereas Hermione and Harry are like, yo, this is wrong. What's wrong with you? Like Harry's just like, why would you want to be locked up like this? Someone who lived locked up literally in like a cabinet under the stairs, right? I can't think of the word right now, but he basically lived in a little cubby under the stairs for, what was it, 8 years before he, I think the second year he got his own room because he scared his uncle and aunt. But up to that point, you know, he lived in captivity. He basically was the lifestyle equivalent of a house elf. So he's someone who I think can speak on this topic. And then Hermione grew up Muggle-born, so she understands the concept of slavery. She might have learned, knowing her being a nerd, she probably knows history, and maybe even knows about American history and the Civil War, stuff like that. This is the 80s, so totally possible. But I just think this concept of how they brush over this topic and how it's so normalized, but it clearly is abusive. But these animals also, or these creatures, these house elves, they're conditioned to that lifestyle and they don't want another lifestyle. Not all of them. Clearly Dobby, once he got freedom, was like, I like this, I want more of this. And they discuss him a little bit. They haven't seen him in the 4th book yet, but Twinkie talks about the fact that you shouldn't have freed him. You shouldn't, like, that was a mistake. He's getting too big for his bridges, basically. He's getting a big head. He thinks he needs to get payment for his jobs now, right? That's what this character was saying, is like, I think you made a bad choice freeing this house elf, because now he wants a position where he can get paid to do the work. And like that concept in itself isn't that crazy. The fact that it's kind of glazed over by the adults is what's almost realistic to me, someone who's, you know, of color, and just I don't think we're past the point of like slavery being acceptable again. I think there are human beings that if they get in power, that could happen. I think that's not super likely, right? I don't think it's very, very likely, but I think it's possible. It's in the realm of possibility, right? So very, very low chances of it happening, but there are people who are okay and super desensitized to the concept of slavery, and it just takes enough people thinking it's normal for anything that's terrible or okay or whatever to be the norm, right? There was a time where it was normal for me to receive racism from white people, and that white person not getting like any repercussions even as an employee, right? They don't take your words seriously. Your parents, maybe they don't speak as I'm trying to like bridge this gap, right? Because I grew up in a family who was from the hood, and I grew up from my dad's side was immigrants, and my parents had different philosophies on how to handle like interracial interactions, because it was more important back in the day. It's less important now, which is a really, really great thing, and it's cool how normalized it is, like, and how acceptable the younger generation's like, yeah, racism is bad, right? Like it's a conversation that can be had publicly, whereas most people didn't really discuss that publicly that I can remember, right? It wasn't like we were shaming people who were racist. It was like, if they're racist, that guy's a racist, like, that might be kind of bad, but I'm not going to get involved, right? It seems more acceptable now. And to backtrack to the book again, you know, that's why that concept in particular jumps out to me, just how this character or this race of house elves, it's normal for them to be slaves, essentially. The only thing that frees them is an article of clothing. Like, that whole weird thing is odd. That's magic stuff. But nonetheless, I'm enjoying the book so far. I haven't been listening to those as much because of what I mentioned last episode, which was, you know, atheist versus Christian debates. That one was really fascinating to me, or that is. I still listen to a few. Usually it's clips. And the way it works is it's like a long 2-hour show, and I don't think I could stand doing a long block like that, but there's segments of the episode in calls. People call in and they debate with the guests that episode. Usually it's Matt, Dillahunty, and somebody else. And I just talked about that. Maybe I'll get more specific into like different episodes if I get more comfortable talking about it. For the longest time, I've felt uncomfortable talking about my lack of religious beliefs because of how normalized most of the places that I've lived, except for in California, it was to just not be a God-fearing human being, right? So it's just something that I've been interested in seeing, and I still listen to those. But the other thing that I've been listening to that I didn't talk about last week and totally forgot was Dimension 20, specifically the Fantasy High series. I just finished the freshman year. And for those who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, Essentially, this is a YouTube series where they do D&D campaigns, Dungeons and Dragons. And this guy, Brendan Lee Mulligan, I believe most of the people that are in this show work or did work for College Humor. And College Humor has a lot of like crude humor, I feel like. A lot of, I don't know if vulgar is the right word. Like for this generation, maybe, but it's just like not safe for TV humor sometimes. Skits and stuff like that. Sometimes it's very wholesome and fine and whatever. It's not always like that. It's just they're willing to say and address topics that are just like in your face, and it's not for everybody. But yeah, they are doing a D&D campaign, and the campaign I'm watching right now. And to backtrack a little bit, the reason I'm watching a lot of D&D campaigns is because I'm doing a D&D campaign. Maybe I'll talk about that in the future too. But I want to learn how to play D&D a little bit better and see how other people play the game, how they RP it, how they role play their characters, how they utilize the rules of the game, how they're creative with their magic spells. And not only that, this series that I'm watching called Fantasy High it's a really it's a really cool concept, right? Because it takes a D&D world where you have like, you know, dragons and elves and mages and druids and warriors and barbarians, and it puts it in a high school setting that's kind of in a pocket city where things are more modernized, right? Like there's vehicles. I think it's like almost in the poodle skirt era too, something like that. I'm trying to remember if that's the case or if it's just like different types of eras of cultures or something like that. But basically it's more modernized. There's cell phones, but they're called crystals, stuff like that. And these characters are in high school, and that doesn't stop them from getting into like crazy fights and fighting super strong monsters and stuff like that. But it's just the way that the politics and the conversations and teenage drama / angst is just all over the place because they're playing teenage characters, so they can be way more creative and expressive and ridiculous and silly and still be realistic, quote unquote, for the scenario that they're in, right? It's just kind of an interesting concept, and the characters are so creative with how they handle certain puzzles or challenges in monsters and fights, and I get to see how to utilize the mechanics of the game of tabletop D&D and get some inspiration. Basically, it's a really good watch, and Brendan Lee Mulligan is a really good DM. I like the freshman one because it was edited too, I would say, but the second series I just started, I'm on still like the first episode, and I'm only maybe 15 minutes in or so, and it's all live, so they have to be a little bit more focused because I think the edited version probably has a lot of tangents and stuff they cut out because it just wasn't relevant to the storyline. So I'm curious to see how this goes, how the sophomore year goes. But yeah, they finished their first year of the campaign or season, whatever they want to call it, and it's really cool. So if you're interested in watching a D&D campaign that's maybe a little bit more unorthodox rather than just the standard D&D world, I highly recommend. The YouTube channel is called Dimension 20. I'll put a link. Reminder to myself, put a link in the description for this. And then the series that I'm specifically watching, the playlist, is called Fantasy High. They have a couple other ones. There's a few I'm excited to watch because one's more sci-fi based, and that's really cool too. There's a series that my friend hopefully does, a campaign called Starfinder. It's like Pathfinder, but stars instead in space. So I do want to do that. I've been thinking about a character that I want to role play, and I'm trying to develop my voice and my tone, my intonation, my demeanor of the character. I don't know, it's kind of cool to play other characters and actually voice act it. I like to voice act, but I've never like done it in front of other people except for when I role play. So I want to do more of that, get more comfortable being unorthodox and in improvisation. That stuff is really cool, to be able to improvise a character, to articulate and to feel the emotions. I like that sort of stuff. So yeah, that wraps up the conversation on terms of what I'm listening to and watching. I will put links and everything that I talked about. I need to remind it to myself, editor version of myself, make sure that I do put those links in there so that we can, other people can check it out. So it'll make it easier for them, Anyways, let's move on to the next topic. All right, so let's talk about some esports updates. as a reminder, I do a lot right now. Right now at Western, all these jobs are part-time, and I am essentially a contractor, right? So at WMU, Western Michigan University, I am now essentially the head coach and coordinator there. So we have 3 varsity teams, and I'm going to try to help make sure they're going well, but also in terms of production and events, I help with that. And then there's summer camps and curriculums that I've helped write. I'll talk about a little bit more of the summer camp stuff, curriculum stuff in the later parts of this episode. But for now, it's just jack of all trades, essentially. I'm doing a little bit of everything there, trying to coordinate, trying to help with the social media as much as I can. As such, I'm just now transitioning from coaching just Rocket League to dealing with the head coaching portion of it and helping with the responsibilities. I will say, in terms of Rocket League updates, we are 3-0, which is really, really cool. We just played against the Montgomery College Raptors, MC Raptors, and it was good. It wasn't as bad of a beating as the last game where we went like 14-0 in one game. It was a closer-ish game. I don't think the opponents ever scored, but it was like 5 points, 4 points, and then 5 points, something like that. And yeah, but so far we're looking good. I know there's one team that we're looking out for that has I think they qualified for Collegiate Rocket League, which is pretty hard to do. Like, you have to be really good and really solid at the game, or have a really good bracket maybe, to get qualified for Collegiate Rocket League. So we're looking out for them. I'm going to have the team and the coach watch some reviews, or watch some VODs of the team in the team in question. But for now, yeah, that's good. I'm going to start looking into the other teams as well. We have a Valorant and Overwatch team. I'd like to stay up to date with them as well. I know that Overwatch had a forfeit recently, so we technically won the game, but we didn't want to win like that because we actually practice production, which is the other half of my job, right? We have some student employees. I have one that's been there for a while, and we're training some new ones. And we take every varsity match as an opportunity to stream the tournament and to train the students. And so it's cool because now we have an actual stream schedule to some extent, which, note to self, philosopher, make sure that you put in your Trello to make an actual stream schedule image so that we can put that on social media and stuff. That's something we should start doing. I digress. One of the cool things that we've talked about before in production is that we have an actual caster station, and if this is a video version, if I post a video version, then I'll put some images or maybe a video of our caster's booth. I need to clean it up, get the wires kind of organized, but for the most part, it's really cool. We still need to clean it up. I'm excited about what we can do with that room, but it's actually really awesome. We have a legit caster station. We still have some more equipment to organize and get figured out. But I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of it, and it looks nice. The last topic that I'll talk about is, like I said before in my tweet, I actually got to meet with someone from Cloud9. I don't know for sure how much I want to say, but I know that I can say that it's affiliated with Western, right? And things aren't guaranteed yet, so I don't want to say too much. But what I will say is that they're looking to work with us in some capacity for training, right? For training players. And there's an opportunity for both the school, myself, and Cloud9 to be able to work together with the college and hopefully me to do some training, right? That's what I'll say for now. To do some like esports training on the collegiate level. And the person that I met, I won't say names or anything like that, but they were really cool. They were an actual gamer. They were someone that was from Michigan. They were from farther up north in Michigan, not from actually like Kalamazoo or anything like that, but was aware of the area. Also knew about fighting games, so we chatted about the FGC a little bit, which is really, really awesome. But one thing that's cool to me is that this company hires individuals that are actual gamers. It doesn't feel like they're just corporate people. They're very down to earth. I felt overdressed, and this person was hanging out in a hoodie and everything. So is pretty interesting, right? And I love that because Cloud9 is a very respected organization. I think I respect them a lot. They produce really strong players. I think their marketing is really good. They have some pretty dope like gear as well. I don't have any of their clothes, but their clothes look pretty sick. I'm not a huge fashion guy, but when something looks cool, something looks cool. So overall, I enjoyed the meeting. It was fairly short, about a half an hour, but I got to give them a tour of the arena. I got to show them our facilities and everything, and they were really, really impressed by our facilities. Like on a collegiate level, they hadn't really seen too many things like that has not just esports PCs, or esports PCs, what the heck are those? Like good gaming machines, and then also like the level of production that we had up in the other room, in our production room. I call it the command center. And it was awesome to be able to talk about and show them what this arena could do and kind of expose more people to it, because I love all the jobs that I have, right? So I don't want to upsell or downsell one job more than the other, or like a certain college. To me, they're essentially clients, right? The different schools and organizations that I work with. But the arena is really cool, and I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now if it wasn't for Western. And so I gotta make sure that for myself, not even for them, but for myself, I'm gonna show off what they have and what that school can do in terms of the potential, right? And not so much as a representative for them, but just as a representative for collegiate gaming and gaming and improvement as a whole. It's cool that because of this job and other jobs like it, I've been able to rub shoulders with different organizations, like Riot, right? Being invited to LCS back in 2019, and being able to invite a couple of friends to go as well. Seeing several games, hopefully traveling more. It's really cool. So shouts out to Cloud9. Hopefully that all works out and I can give you guys a bigger update later on once all the paperwork is signed. But paperwork on the collegiate level takes a long time to get figured out, so it might be a month or so before we have anything confirmed. But yeah, it might be sometime in the summer before I can really talk more about it. But hopefully in the springtime, hopefully mid-spring, I can talk about it, and I would love to do more of that and reach more organizations, right? I don't want to tangent too hard, but maybe I should make a subtopic for this in the future. There is something I very strongly want to do better, but since this pandemic has started, it has been hard for me to focus. And I'm trying to figure out what it is for me that I need to do to get that focus, to get that organization, to get that accountability back as much as possible. And routine is one of the key things that I'm trying to get better about. If I have a routine, a lot of things are going to get done more consistently. And I feel like since this has been a reoccurring thing, right? And I'll get into my Albion updates after this. There has been a lot of change in my life that has made it hard to adjust to doing things consistently. The earliest I can think back is moving to San Diego. Ever since then, my life has been almost like year to year to year having huge changes, and sometimes for the better and sometimes for arguably the worse, or just a neutral change that has made it harder, right? I moved to San Diego. I moved to a different place in San Diego. Then I moved back into my parents for a couple of months. I went back to school. I also got a job at Lowe's Home Improvement full-time. Then I moved out after a month and moved in with some friends who basically we were a gaming house where we ran fighting game tournaments every week, which was awesome. But my interests sort of shifted ever since then, for the better in my opinion. And I started doing FGC philosophy around this time, and making content and my priorities. Like I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do as a business. And then I also was like with my girlfriend, then moved in with her, became fiance, became husband. We got married during the pandemic. We bought a house before the pandemic and had a son before the pandemic. So he was like 1.5 going into the pandemic. And just like things have fallen off and I've gotten better at certain things. Like I've fallen off my workout regimen and diet before and leading up to the pandemic. And then also when I moved from San Diego, it got worse too, just because access to good food at a reasonable price was harder to do. And then, just so many things have happened, and it's trying to decide what my routine is, honestly, is one of the hardest things that now that my life feels like it's settling a little bit, I can start to plan things more consistently. And part of that is making sure that I'm going to bed at the right time, since my responsibilities are happening at earlier times. And some of those responsibilities are things I'm setting for myself, like going to a gym or going and checking emails earlier in the day or exercising somehow. So I'm trying to set what those things are for myself, because I'm working part-time and sometimes I have downtime in between going from one job to another. And I want to make sure that I'm utilizing that time better, which means if I'm sleeping at a better time or if I'm doing certain things at a better time. So I just got to put all those pieces together and then make sure that I'm doing those things consistently, because I got bigger things I need to figure out how to do. And if I can't do the simple stuff, then I can't keep improving myself. I'm going to plateau. I don't want to plateau. So that was very, I don't know if that was metaphorical or if that was very visual talking, because it feels like it didn't make sense. So you have to let me know if that actually made sense. Kind of a side tangent, but it's something that's been on my brain, and I didn't really have a good spot for it to fit anywhere else. So before, and part of the struggle also why it's relevant to this topic of Western is because of the plans that I have for Western, but I have to make sure that there's structure to what I'm doing. And I have to make sure there is a process that other people who aren't myself or my other employee who's very experienced, they can follow that process if me and him aren't there. And that's not where we are yet. And we also have to try to document it as accurately as possible, as productively as possible, in my opinion. So yeah, I gotta not just create a process for myself and a routine for myself, but a routine for the other companies that I'm working for, because I'm a perfectionist. I don't care what my boss's expectations are. Right now I'm meeting those, but that's not good enough for me, and it's also not good enough for one of my employees. Like we want to do things better, but we also have to both make sure that we're doing getting the most important things done first before we really start getting a big head and things like that. So we prioritize, make sure we're creating a process, getting towards our goal, make sure the process leads towards our goal and also maintains the other goals that we want to be meeting. And that's the overall goal for me right now, is just to make sure we have a process and maintain what we're doing, and then leave room for when things go wrong, because things will always go wrong. That is something that we have learned very early on. But that said, I want to get on to the Albion updates, and then we can talk about just some Guilty Gear Strive to in the night. Next, I want to talk about some Albion updates. Not too much here right now, because we already kind of have a process, and it's getting better, right? So, of course, I coach Rocket League at Albion. I coach the varsity team. We have 3 players right now and a sub that I'm working with. We basically have a process. We work out on Saturdays. Today is Saturday, so I'm recording this on the day after our workout. So I can discuss, this week. Right now, I think we're we're 1 and 3 right now. Not where we want to be. We've had some good games, but we kind of crumbled under pressure a couple times, and I'm trying to work with the team about that. That's one of the biggest issues right now, but honestly, I think just developing their mechanics and working on communication and teamwork is going to be more beneficial in helping with their confidence in handling pressure. So trying to get them more experience, trying to get them more stress or more pressure, stress under pressure, whatever the term is, making sure that they're trying their best consistently. And they're going through some frustrations right now. I think they're going through some growing pains. Some players are trying to figure things out. And so right now I'm trying to strategize how to help them get through that plateau that they're at right now. My coaching style is a little bit different, and it's something I'm still developing. My idea is that players, especially in video games, because there's so much information out there, they don't need to learn as traditionally as with other practices like martial arts and things where it's really important to have form. It is important. I do go through some routines where we practice very specific things, so we have that foundation as well. But I also try to make sure that I'm challenging them mentally and making them think about things and asking questions and trying to look for that information so that they can grow on their own. A lot of times that's not necessary in other sports like, football or baseball. A good coach will do that. A good coach will challenge you, just like a good sensei will give you quotes to help you think about things. And sometimes it's hard for everyone to pick up those pieces because a coach or a sensei or a teacher can leave all this information right in front of them, but the student may not ever actually see it to pick it up. So it's really important for me that I push these students to think for themselves and look for the answer rather than looking for excuses. Some players, it's very, very natural to make excuses whenever things go wrong or to focus on what's not important. And it's something that I have to keep revisiting because it's not an easy thing. It's a really easy concept to just overlook or not know how to master. So I find that after just today's practice where the players got really frustrated at just some of the mistakes they're making, they're noticing the mistakes, which is really good, and they're acknowledging it, but now they're getting frustrated about it. Because it's a team effort, so sometimes the other players are trying to make sure that everyone's doing the right thing and trying to hold each other accountable. And holding each other accountable, holding teammates accountable, it's a balancing act, right? Because you want to make sure that you're saying something to let them know that, hey, we got to make sure that we're doing this, but you also don't want to push too hard to where you're affecting your teammates emotionally or your teammates just can't take it. And you also don't want to be so quiet that your teammates just don't know what the situation is from your perspective. So you got to make sure that you're talking, but not talking too much. And then also looking at yourself and not getting mad at your own mistakes, but continuing to improve. It's a balancing act. And as a coach, I'm trying to strengthen myself in every way. I'm trying to improve myself at Rocket League. I'm trying to learn and watch more Rocket League and to read more concepts and study more, because I want to make sure that I'm knowledgeable all around, not just on the mental, but I got to make sure I'm knowledgeable on the mechanical side of it as well. I take this very seriously, and I'm in the process of learning the game on a new controller. I'm playing on a hitbox right now, so this is something that I plan on streaming in the future, depending on how I feel about it. But yeah, I'm using a hitbox, which is a very unorthodox controller for the game. I'll just say that if you don't know what a hitbox is, and if you don't know what Rocket League plays like. That's all I'm going to say on that. Rocket League is an incredibly mechanical game, and it is hard to understand that until you start playing the game enough, or it just you can't just watch the game and see it. You can probably figure it out a little bit if you know how games like that might play, but most people aren't going to appreciate the finesse of Rocket League or the mechanics of Rocket League until you actually play it and then watch some high level Rocket League after you understand the mechanics of the game a little better. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now with my esports updates. I have 2 other companies I'm working with, but there's not too much to talk about there right now. They're kind of starting an early spring break, and it's kind of boring right there. I'm trying to develop some stuff, but I got these 2 that I'm really balancing because they're kind of my biggest priorities. But I do want to make sure I'm doing a good job on the other areas, so maybe in the future I'll talk more about that, because I want to make sure I'm doing better, and this podcast helps me to ensure that I continue to do better. But let's get into that last topic. Let's talk about some Guilty Gear Strive with 300 plus hours in the game. So Guilty Gear Strive is a fighting game I've been playing primarily, especially since I can't make my online locals anymore until future notice. So I really like Guilty Gear Strive. You guys have heard me talk about it before. I've got apparently 300 hours according to Steam. I'll probably have some time where the game is running and I'm just doing something else perhaps, but it's very rare that I have the game open and I'm not actively playing or practicing. Lately, the last couple of weeks, I haven't played it a lot. Played it more than Street Fighter, but I haven't played a lot. And I try to stream most of the times I'm playing it. I would say I'm at a place in the game where I am definitely above average, and I'm happy with the current place that I'm at. I have attained a higher level of skill in the game that I thought that would be possible, but now I'm in a place where I'm I wouldn't say I'm complacent. I still want to improve and get better. So I still have that same drive, but now I'm in a place where I want to identify what it is I want to get better at. I've gotten good at a lot of stuff, and I'm still trying to improve it. My hit confirms really, that's something that I'm continuing to work on, but I would like to take it to a deeper level of skill. Like, I want to take it to like mastery, like being one of the best hit confirmers ever. And I think my desire to want to also play matches and improve as a player overall, sometimes those two are combating with how I spend my time and also what I'm focusing on during a match or during practice. I find now I want to just get in and play some games, and I'm okay with that because I still get experience and I'm still practicing and I'm still learning and improving, hopefully. But it takes away from my lab time where I'm practicing specific skills, which I also do find fun, but it's less stimulating, less things going on, less flashing lights, yada yada. So right now, mentally, I'm in this place to where I'm not spending most of my time improving and labbing, because I just, when I do get a chance to play the game, I just want to play some sets, and I'm usually playing people online because most of my friends probably aren't on while I'm playing the game, or this is late, or I just want to hurry up and play some matches and not wait for people to respond for me. Whatever the reason is, I usually just play on my own, play some ranked, and then I get off. I've not been taking my notes. I have a whole list of notes that I should be improving and evolving, but I have this reoccurring issue with written things where I don't like to proofread. I don't like to reread what I've already written. It's like once it's out of my head, it's gone. Like, I banish it. I remember most of the things, but that's speculative because I don't reread a lot of my things enough to really know that's the case, and it just feels like a daunting task. I suspect I might have like dyslexia or something. It's never been tested or anything like that, but I like reading. I like reading books, but it's always been hard for me. I've always been a slow reader. But when it comes to reading my own stuff, it has nothing to do with ego, I would say. It just literally is disinteresting to me, or just hard to get myself to do. Like, it's not like I'm embarrassed to read my own stuff like I am to hear my own voice when I'm editing my episodes. I still do it, whatever. I'm fine with it now. But yeah, I haven't figured out how to get past that, and I would like to, because I want to be a better Nago player, and I think taking notes and refining my notes would also help teach other people. So I'm motivated to do it. It's just I'm trying to figure that out, because I have that issue in other areas where it's more important to my career that I want to make sure that I'm doing. When it's career-wise, I'm more likely to do it, but I keep it pretty basic. And I don't know. I mean, there's things that I want to do. I want to write a book one day. I want to get things done. And I started a lot of books and concepts and things, but just like, I don't want to reread it. So this is a huge tangent, but it's very similar to my situation with practicing hit confirms in some ways. So I'm articulating this concept as I'm thinking about it, but I just want to do stuff rather than revisit what I already know. I don't know. I would love some input from people. Maybe I'll have someone on a sports psychologist in the future. I would love to get more sports psychologists on this podcast, honestly. Like, I've looked at some sports psychologists. I want to improve the quality of my content because I want to get better guests on the show. I want to get guests on the show, period, but I got to schedule those things. So in terms of Nago Ryuki, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I've tried a few other characters over the last month, like Zato and Baiken. I'm really enjoying Baiken. I think that she's someone that I would like to put more time into. She's a character that recently came out. She's a newer character, and the character makes sense to me. There's a few things that I don't find as interesting, but are willing to learn in the future, but don't think I need them right now. And there's other things about the character that I think are just super cool and very satisfying, and in the ways that Nago doesn't have, movement options the same way. I do enjoy having a character that has that, but is also still a cool samurai type of character. That's pretty awesome. So I would love, if you're a Guilty Gear player and you're trying to get better, I don't care if you're new to the game or you're really, really like godlike top 100 in the game. I would love to get some sets with you. I play on PC. My Guilty Gear name is I Know the Risks. So I don't know if you can look me up that way, but if you can, then feel free to follow me. I love that name. I'll share that story another time if you're interested, if you want to DM me or something like that. But I like this game a lot. Outside of Rocket League, I think this is the game that I want to improve at until Street Fighter 6, which did I even talk about Street Fighter 6 in the last episode? There's not really too much to talk about with that right now. It got announced. There'll be more stuff in the summer. So I will talk more about it when there's more to talk about right now. Otherwise, I'm not talking about the logo and I'm not talking about wide body Ryu. Neither of those things are that interesting to talk about in my opinion. It's just people grasping at straws to get attention on social media. Anyways, yeah, I'd want to improve at the game. I'm not looking for advice right now in terms of the game. It's more so just putting in time and then playing sets and then getting critiques on the sets and what my options are at any given moment, because there might be things I just have to lab. There's probably certain things that I have to lab in order to understand how to deal with it and then also commit it to muscle memory. But other than that, I've just been trying to piece together different skills from Nago that I think I can master or have mastered, and continue doing that. So that said, last couple of things. One, if you guys are interested in audiobooks, if you guys do like the concept of listening to audiobooks and stuff like that, then make sure you go to taviannapier.com/audible. You get a free month and you also get a free token. It depends on which option you choose. So there's two different options on Audible. There's the Plus and then there's a Premium Plus, which is a version that I have. The Plus version just gets you access to the free books within the catalog, kind of like Netflix, right? There's books already on there. If you go this route, check out Viridian Gate Online. This is the book I've talked about. I believe the first two books are free. At least the first one is free, but I believe the first two, because I don't technically own them. I realized I listened to them because they were free and I didn't realize that. I thought I had bought them, but it's just on the catalog. And then you got to get the other ones. I use tokens to get like the last 3 or 4 books. But you get access to that. That one's going to be $7.95 after the free month. But if you wind up keeping it, that's the only way that I make money. If you don't like it, then don't get it. I'm not trying to force anybody to get something they don't want to get, but I do want to mention it because it helps me out too. The other one is $14.95, which is the one that I do technically have. That one gets you the free token. That also gets you 30% off on like book selections as well. So sometimes when you're buying books, you get that discount, and you still get the access to the aforementioned catalog of stuff. So make sure you check it out. taviannapier.com/audible. Helps me out, helps you out. You get a free month. Good. You like it? Great. You don't? No big deal. Outside of that, make sure you do follow me on social media. It's going to be Twitter is The Philosopher. YouTube.com is just youtube.com/philosopher. Facebook, I don't really use anymore. And Instagram is Philosopher as well. Pretty much Philosopher on everything. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all in the next one.